Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're just waiting to see if we have a quorum. We need 6 members, and now we have 1, 2, 3. We have 3 members right now. So I do know that Sal Alfano, council person, is in jury duty today, so he cannot join us. But I do have some notes from him, and I also know that we have Evelyn here instead of Kelly. Thanks, Evelyn. And so we'll just wait another minute. I'll send a few texts out. I think Zach is running a little late, so that would get us to 4. Let me see if I can rustle up a few more members. I think that's Dawn on the phone. Hi, Dawn. Glad you're here. Sorry, I just texted you. You can ignore it. Just give me one more minute and check my email and see if I've got any latecomers. All right, looks like we've reached quorum. That's wonderful. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. Let me get to our agenda. We're going to go ahead and start with introductions. I'll start. My name is Meredith Warner. I am the interim co-chair of the Homelessness Task Force along with Zach. I also work at Good Samaritan Haven, and I'll pass it to Zach. And please pass it to the next person as you all go.
This is Zach Hughes. I'm the co-chair of this task force and a whole lot more in the community. And I just want to let the task force know I'm going to have to step off, but I'm going to come back because I have to go back to another way. I thought I was going to be able to stay off site, but Ken wants me back there. So I'm doing that in a few minutes, hopefully. Do we have quorum before I jump off? We do? Good.
I may not be here for the whole meeting, Zach.
Well, that doesn't matter as long as I get back to another way. I can get back on once I get up there. I just heard from Ken he wanted me back there. So
We
I
have
thought he was.
We have 7, so if you two can stagger your absences, that would keep us in.
I'll go first, Dawn, and if you can take it out when I come back, that'd be great.
Great.
You good?
Let's do that.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm off. Thank you.
Dawn, do you want to introduce yourself since you're unmuted already?
Yeah. This is Dawn Little. I'm a task force member, a Montpelier resident. I do street outreach for Good Samaritan Haven, and I've been doing street outreach in central Vermont for about 9 years now. Thanks.
Thanks, Dawn. And just a reminder that Dawn's on the phone and others may require this as well. Please introduce yourself each time you speak. Sophie, do you want to go ahead?
Yep. Hi, everyone. Sophie Lewis. I'm a task force member and a resident of Montpelier. I'll pass it to Tori.
I'm Tori Rodine. I live in Montpelier. I'm a task force member. Bev?
I'm Bev Allen. I live in Montpelier and I'm a member of the task force. Passing to Evelyn.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Evelyn Prim, the Communications Coordinator for the City of Montpelier, and I am sitting in for Assistant City Manager Kelly Murphy, who had a scheduling conflict.
Nola, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Nolan Carver. I'm a member of the Conservation Commission, and I also serve on the Complete Streets Committee. Thank you. I live at 11 Winter Street.
Let's see. Carolyn, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Carolyn Ridpath. I'm a resident of Montpelier and a former task force member.
Thank you. I see someone named Clem. Clem, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, I'm Clem Noon, resident of Montpelier. I went to the homeless housing committee meeting yesterday as well. I'm starting to attend committees and city stuff and see where I can be involved. Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Thank you. I see someone named Mary. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Mary Messier, Montpelier resident, former homeless task force member. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Mary. Appreciate it. And I see another person on the line named Advocate. Would you like to introduce yourself? I'm going to assume Advocate is going to just listen in. You're welcome to stay. Please introduce yourself later if that becomes something you'd like to do. I went ahead and put the agenda in the chat. Our first order is to just review and approve. Go ahead, Zach.
This is Zach. I'm back, and I'll be able to be in the meeting today at full length. So, Dawn, if you're okay, you can do what you need to do. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
All right, so our agenda today is introductions, which we've done, review and approve the agenda. We have minutes, time for public comment, task force administration. We have an update section. This is where we'll probably spend the bulk of our time just talking about the occurrences of the last 2 weeks since we met. After that, priority setting, short and long term. For those of you who are new to the committee or to the task force, we have been attempting for a few months now to set some priorities for ourselves. And we are finding ourselves in a very kind of dynamic and emergent situation where some priorities seem to be presenting themselves to us, at least in the short term. And I've been talking with Tori and Sophie, who have been leading that part of our plan. And so we will talk about that at that section, and then we'll finish with announcements and adjournment. Can I get a motion to approve or change the agenda?
Motion to approve today's agenda, Zach.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Dawn. Can any conversation to change or review, adjust the agenda?
This is Zach. Oh, I guess we're not in task force admin yet. I'll get to that in a second. Fine, thanks.
Thank you.
I don't think I read it.
Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote to approve the agenda. Please raise your hand if for a yes vote for the agenda. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6. Dawn, did you want to vote or abstain?
I'd like to abstain, please, because I haven't seen it.
Okay, 1 abstention.
Zach, I'm gonna vote aye, and I do apologize. I was off the line for a second.
That's okay. Any nay votes on the agenda approval? None. Next is to approve the minutes. I sent a lot of things to you this week. One thing I did not send is the minutes. So we're going to hold last meeting minutes, and we will approve them at our next task force meeting in 2 weeks. Sorry for that. There was a lot to compile, and I missed it. Now is a time for public comment. If there's anyone here from the greater public who would like to take 3 minutes to share some thoughts with the task force, now is a time for that. We also tend to make time casually throughout conversation to hear from you as well, but now is a time if you have a specific statement you'd like to bring. All right, seeing or hearing no public comment specifically, we'll move on to task force administration. This is just a time to talk about how we're doing our work together and planning for next meeting, things like that. Zach, it sounded like you had a comment.
Yeah, I just had an observation for you that if you needed any assistance, I know you call on me, and if you need that, and we can do what we need to do. And I don't want someone's plate to become too full. I see a lot of great work going on, and I'm appreciative to particularly Tori and Sophie for all the beautiful work I'm seeing. And I do apologize for abandoning you guys over there, that group, but I figured y'all had it in hand. So, yeah, so I just want to make that observation. We all do good work. Thanks.
Yeah, Zach, and just wanting to really appreciate that as a street outreach person, this has been a really rough, hard 2 weeks for you, and we are happy to hold this part of it for you. I'm sure I'll just speak for Tori and Sophie there and say that we're fine, and we'll let you know if we need you, but do what you need to do. Take care of yourself too. A note, and I'll call on anybody who happened to attend last week's city council meeting, but it is on our plate now to an invitation to participate in the October 16th special meeting that the council is calling regarding homelessness. I'm noting that here in administration. We can deal with that in terms of an action item when we get down into our priority setting. But I wondered if there was anybody who wanted to give any more information, just really logistical around
Yes, we do.
October 16th. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Zach.
I do actually. I didn't realize the date, but I'm happy. I think having attended that meeting, and I wasn't planning to attend that entire spot. I was lucky I did. My friend asked me to attend, so I did that entire spot. And lo and behold, and Tori was with me, and it was great. We worked together, channeling our message, and it was, and they heard us. So they are now interested in this special meeting, and I think they definitely heard that we want to give them the resources. Because I don't think they heard that before. So yeah, that's my observation. Thanks.
Thank you, Zach and Tori, for being present and making the homelessness task force's voice present at that meeting. Really appreciative. Tori, did you want to add anything?
The one thing I would add is that they absolutely, I had thought that we were sending our letter and report, kind of into a black hole. But in point of fact, clearly a bunch of people read it. Clearly a bunch of people had the response of being very concerned and saying, oh my God, we didn't actually understand these things are going on. And here is, and here are some action steps that were outlined in what we sent to them. So if anybody else was sharing my sort of level of humble discouragement about whether what we're doing had any impact, evidently it did, which was, but there the one very discouraging thing is that they still although there was a lot of struggling with conscience about whether or not to approve the policy for Country Club Road, they eventually went ahead and approved it. But I think for us to be aware that that was done with very divided hearts, I think, by many of the people who voted. I think it's just a very important thing for us to be aware of walking into a conversation with them.
And if I could just say so, I see Sophie also was wanting to get in. If I could just say something more, I also I would hope that, as I spoke very clearly about, because they kind of said, well, we have the policy, but we look the other way in Hubbard Park sometime too. And I said, well, I'm hoping y'all are actually following your current encampment policy, because I'm not hearing that right now. So, when we're putting and so you're saying they need this policy, I get that, but I would want some reassurance that they would exercise the flexibility right? So that's kind of where I went with that, and yeah, they ended up passing it. I mean the CCR, Country Club Road.
So just for some context, folks, at the prior to this past meeting, there was no policy regarding the use of the land at Country Club Roads. As you all know, as a community, we voted to purchase it. It was slated for housing development. It has slowly taken on other uses as the time of figuring out how to develop the land has extended, and that has invited the city to, like their other properties, set a policy to how it is managed and any kind of rules or things that dictate it. So that policy was discussed at the previous meeting, and then this week was passed. And just for note of contention was a ban on camping was a part of that. Can somebody tell me where the use of alcohol came out in the policy? That was another one. Do you remember?
Boy, I don't remember that. I know it was also a contention. I think I don't know what they did with that.
It
I
was
can look that
allowed
up right now.
to be consistent with the Hubbard Park policies.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Carolyn. Yeah.
Okay, Evelyn, thank you. That'd be great if you could confirm that piece. And again, I apologize that there was a lot to get into you this week, and I apologize that that wasn't included in it. That is, it is important. However, as I think as Zach indicated, and we can dig in a little deeper. I'm going to try and give us maybe 10 minutes for each kind of occurrence that's happened in the last 2 weeks to kind of process and see if we want to make any recommendations or if we want to take any steps or advise the council in any way. But so we'll just let's try and get out of the task force administration piece right now and move into updates. So just to be clear in terms of facilitation today, are there any other task force administration notes? Like this is really logistical in terms of how we do our work. Okay, so I'm going to move us into updates. And the way I'm thinking about today's meeting between these two pieces is we have an updates section where we can talk about some of the things that have occurred in the last 2 weeks. Because there's a lot, I'd like to limit each conversation to about 10 minutes. And then I think from then we can go into priority setting. We can take those things that were discussed in updates. We can discuss if there's anything actionable in there, like perhaps we want to endorse something that the council did around a policy or something, or maybe we want to just name some objection to or concerns that we have about something. But that priority setting time will be a time for us to take those updates and move them into action. Does that make sense to people? And does that all work for you? And Tori and Sophie, am I missing anything from in terms of how we kind of prepared for holding the priority piece right now?
I think you covered it all.
Okay. And just for clarity, as we've been trying to set priorities, I met with Tori and Sophie Monday, to just kind of say, what do we do with this? How do we do priority setting when the ground beneath us continues to shift and it's kind of hard to put your finger down on the map? So what we decided was we would allow some of these priorities that are emerging to come into play, and we would address them. And then we will hold this idea of a priority setting piece for the future, continue to kind of hold that up and make sure that we're not missing any of those great ideas that have already come out of those initial conversations. So that's kind of where we're at. All right. Okay, so Evelyn noted that alcohol use is consistent with Hubbard Park. So that means it is you can use alcohol at Country Club Road. So let's go ahead into updates. And I would love support in this moment because I wasn't able to really transfer my email to you into this section as well as I'd hoped to. But I'm just going to make a short list of things we might want to talk about in updates. And I'd like you to help me make that short list first, and then we can kind of order them and go through them. I would like to provide you all with a brief update on some numbers we just collected today at Good Samaritan. that estimates the number of people who have been exited from the motel program and who are currently unsheltered in our community. I would like to give you just a brief update on the Elks shelter opening. These can both be brief. I will invite Dawn and Zach to also engage with the kind of the numbers piece around street outreach. So those are some of those. I would like to give us some time to debrief on Country Club Road policy in case there's any action we want to take there. I suggested in my email that feels like there's an emerging community outreach need from this task force, both to our colleagues in other committees as well as more broadly in the community. And this is part of that kind of conversation around Planning Commission. They had a conversation that I think really engages with our work that we might want to just figure out how to be part of. And was there anything else? And just naming, I just want to name aloud that like I'm looking forward to the city engaging us on the kind of timeline around budgeting and making sure that this task force is part of that, giving input to that budgeting process.
I agree. But it's, I don't know. It's still
Excuse me, Meredith.
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you for those links to the planning committee meeting. I found that very insightful. Otherwise, I would not have explored that.
Thank you. Yes. Appreciate.
There was specific talk about Confluence Park. I would encourage all of you to review that first 15 minutes. I think they're very observant about as far as the quality of life there and the nature of the controversy ongoing and the nature of the challenges. I look forward to resolving some of these challenges, in particular with respect to how homelessness interacts with the quality of life, a sensitive area in Confluence Park. Thank you.
Thanks, Nolan. Before we move into conversation, I just want to rename the kind of areas of conversation that we're going to focus on. There's going to be a very brief Elks shelter update, a street outreach update, which includes some data. There'll be some conversation specific to Country Club Road policy. There'll be a specific conversation around community outreach, which can include that conversation with the Planning Commission. If those are our major conversations at this moment, is there anybody who wants to add something else to that? And then I'll facilitate us through that list. Carolyn.
I'm seeing Carolyn's hand.
Carolyn, go ahead.
I would like to hear what the churches are doing in the community.
Sure. I am going to kind of, in a way, combine street outreach and motel in that kind of general conversation, because those two things have merged somewhat because of the exits. So why don't we start? I'm going to go ahead and thank you for that, Carol. I'm going to go ahead and just start, because it's brief, with the Elks Country Club Road shelter. So Good Samaritan Haven, we are opening early this year. Last night was our first inaugural night of the shelter. We had 5 guests. I'm hearing that it went smoothly and that setup.
I'm actually hearing 6. I don't know if you got that one, but it's 6.
Thank you. Yes, 6. So 6 on our inaugural night. As some of you know, last year we had 15 beds. This year we have 20. The city has already moved forward on some renovation to improve the space, including a door. And the bathroom renovation for showers is forthcoming. We have word that should be completed around November 1st. So Good Samaritan Haven runs a shuttle van that picks folks up in the community and brings them to the Elks shelter. And if anybody knows anyone who needs shelter, they can call our street outreach team or our main number to get more information. Anybody need anything else, would like to learn anything more about the opening of the elk shelter.
Yeah, I just had a question. I know you're on your inaugural. I know there was talk of providing dinner up there. Are they doing that, or is that going to be sporadic?
I have not participated in the planning meetings, but I do believe that food is scheduled to be served there, and I can get you more information. Zach, we're a little bit building the ship as it's
No,
starting
it's
to
fine.
fly.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
I get that. It
Yeah.
sounds like it was a nice ride for y'all last night. That's
Good, yeah, and our shelter manager, Ronna Gable, is amazing, and she certainly makes sure people's needs are met if there's a gap in service. So I feel confident in saying that. Go ahead, Bev.
How do folks find out about pickup spots for the van?
That's a really good question. I'm gonna get that for you.
There are
Oh,
probably two ways that you can find out, two or three ways. One is that Ron, I believe, had posted information in another way. The other thing is that the street outreach people are aware of it, and when we refer people to the shelter, that's one of the things. That's one of the first things we tell them. There's also a lot of word of mouth about that. I did also want to say, in regards to low attendance, that it always takes, you know, a few days or a little while for a lot of the people to show up. That may be different this year because we still have people coming out of the motels who are being referred to overflow. So theoretically, we should be full before too long. I don't know how long it will take people to show up, but we're not in danger of having empty beds for that long, I don't think.
Thanks, Don. Don, do you know where the van pickup locations are? I don't have that information.
Yeah, the actual pickup locations are at the transit center and in front of City Hall. At I believe at 6 o'clock and 6:10. I don't know whether it's sequential or exactly.
It's correct,
If I
but
haven't-
they have had a couple. Like last night, got started a little bit later, from what I understood. But I'm sure they're going to work on that the 6:10 thing.
Well, yeah, I had one miss the bus on the first night that called me, which they did go and pick him up, or at least they tried. I haven't heard the results of that.
Thanks, Don. And yes, the weather's also quite mild, so I think will also be contributing to kind of a slow uptake. But in a lot of ways, that works really well for staffing for us to kind of ease into it, and also to ease into learning about the guests that are there, and you know, just working out the kinks. So go ahead, Zach.
Oh, I wanted to add that I'm just grateful for this partnership between the city and Good Samaritan around the shelter, the overflow, and where it's going. I really love it. I know it only serves about 20 people, but I just want to say this is a positive. So I'm very happy with that, and I'm very thankful to both partners. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to add a plug here because it always feels useful to say so, because it's not anything that most people would be cognizant of, is that Good Samaritan Haven spends an incredible amount of time kind of navigating with street outreach, supporting folks in Montpelier, which is very different from our other municipalities where we have bricks and mortar shelters. It is a challenging resource allocation. And I'm not saying this a blaming way. I'm saying this in a reality way. It takes a lot of energy for us to serve Montpelier without a full-time shelter. And so that's me saying, like, our Good Samaritan would be sustained much better if we had a full-time bricks and mortar shelter in Montpelier where we could be serving people, and we feel that would serve people better, and we feel that would serve the city of Montpelier better. So that's just me kind of continuing to say, like, let's figure out how the task force can also continue to push for and providing year-round 24/7 shelter in Montpelier. That would be lovely.
Maybe putting that in the guiding document as well, maybe somewhere.
Yeah, thank you. Don, your hand is up. Did you have anything? Sorry, it might just be up there from before.
I think I probably already said it. The other thing I could just say for our education is that overflow shelter serves two purposes. One, obviously, overflow when the other shelters in the Good Samaritan system are full. But in addition to that, it's a different setting. So it also provides a place for a number of people who have been outside a lot for a long time and may not be compatible with the other shelters in the system. So it serves both of those functions. Just wanted to say that.
Thanks, Dawn. That's really helpful context. Okay, let's move on. Before I'm just gonna give you some data because it's up on my mind. I think it kind of sets us up for a conversation about street outreach and the impact to them in the last 2 weeks since the 19th of motel exits. But we have new data this morning, and again, like, this is really imperfect, but it might be useful to push forward to the council, which is that our understanding, if you look just at folks who have been exited from the state's GA program, that in the Montpelier area, there are 25 individuals who have been exited who are now not sheltered. Approximately 15 of those are in tents, and approximately 10 of those folks are in cars. And I can put this in the chat as well. In addition to that, we know of at least 5 families, which includes 9 children who have been exited from the motel programs locally. We understand that at least 3 of those families are in tents and 2 of those families are in cars. So that is helping to illustrate to you the impact of the motel exits that are currently occurring. I'm going to put that in the chat. So Evelyn, if you want it for the notes, you can grab it. Why can't I get it to everyone? There we go.
Meredith, say the numbers. Okay, here we go. Thank you.
Yep. So 25 individuals,
Okay, yeah.
15 in tents, 10 in cars, 5 families, including 9 children, 3 in tents, 2 in cars. And then, I can address a little bit, just briefly, Carolyn, as well as Good Samaritan and other community partners. We can't be super public about what we are doing at this moment, but I do want folks to know that Good Samaritan, along with some of the other faith communities, have been working really diligently to figure out ways that we can bridge stays for folks in the motels, particularly those who are the most vulnerable. So we're talking about people who need electricity for oxygen, need electricity for insulin, perhaps have severe mental or physical disabilities that quite literally, if they were outside, they would not survive. And so we have been working with a lot of folks who are having that experience and trying to figure out ways to bridge their stays to keep them inside. And that is specifically keep them in the motels. There are faith communities who, particularly to my knowledge, Christ Episcopal in Montpelier, the Unitarian Church of Montpelier, as well as Good Shepherd in Barrie. And I am I'm doing some outreach in Lamoille County and hoping for connections in Rutland County to be doing the same. This is, again, like, well beyond the scope of Good Samaritan Haven, but this is a life-saving measure at this point that we feel obligated to do. And those faith communities are mostly focused on working with children, with families with children, and bridging their stays. We've also been connecting folks to the homelessness liaison at the Montpelier Public School District. We're really trying to shore up a network of support and really connecting our street outreach with that team. And I'm sharing all this with the understanding that it is imperative that community partners, the city, are all continuing to put immense pressure on the state around this problem, because the real solution here is what was named in the press conference last week, which is for the governor or the legislature to return and reinstate the motel program and keep these folks sheltered. So that's my spiel. I'm happy to take questions, but I also don't want to, go ahead, Zach.
There's just additional data that's probably the same data that some of the same data you saw. That's somewhere out there. I can find it after the meeting, maybe, that was released by the Agency of Education around kids. And they were particularly, it was interesting hearing some feedback from some of the schools. They weren't happy with the new policy, obviously, but this was really refreshing. I mean, not refreshing, but you know what I mean. It tells me there's other parties who are really like, what the hell's going on here? So I just want to point everyone in that direction. If I can find the data, I'll get it over to you. Thanks.
That'd be great, Zach. Thank you.
Mm.
Dawn and then Tori.
Mhm.
Yeah, just a reminder, of course, in addition to that, the numbers that Meredith gave you are the motel, are people who are being exited now, and it continues to happen.
Right.
But in addition to that, of course, we already had dozens of people outside in the area who are still outside. So it's not, it's a pretty big number. I don't have the numbers right now simply because it has been so busy that I haven't gotten to talk to the person whom I know has been working incredibly long hours and hasn't had time to get the numbers together. But it's not just the number that she just mentioned. There are still a lot of chronically ill and vulnerable people who have been out there all along. Thanks.
Thank you, Dawn. Yes, and those numbers that excludes the folks who were already living outside, right? Those are people that excludes people who are already unsheltered that street outreach has already been supporting. So just keep that in mind. That's specifically motel exits numbers. Any other questions about that? And then just we'll go ahead, Tori.
Yeah, the two faith communities where I've heard more specifically what they're doing are really taking an approach of quote adopting and quote specific households or specific families, which this is I find this very interesting. It's also what the Central Vermont Refugee Action Network does in terms of their approach to the families that they're working with. And the downside is it means it's a very small number of people that they're focusing on helping. The upside hopefully means that relationships will be established that can be supportive over longer periods of time. But it's a different model than the one that agencies usually have taken. So I just wanted to pass that on.
Thanks, Tori. And I think if you belong to a community who wants to participate in this process of providing, bridge support for a family or an individual, please reach out to me and I can help you connect with that. And I say I just want to reiterate that because I think it's really important, particularly in terms of how the press talks about it, is like, we cannot take the pressure off the state.
Right.
This cannot be a solution to the problem. It cannot be just us stepping in, the providers. It can't be the community. It can't be just the faith communities. It can't be just any community practice who wants to engage with us. We have to do this in such a way that we continue to put pressure on the state. So please, if you engage in this or speak with the press at all, it's really important that we're not providing kind of an exit strategy for the state, who should have frankly done more.
So actually, I have a quick question. It's not really going to be a quick answer either, but I guess I would ask, play it on the other side of the fence for a minute. The state of Vermont has always relied on the nonprofit sector to pick up that side of it. And the state's saying that they don't have the resources to do everything. So I don't know where that kind of leaves us other than the pressure. I guess it's an observation. Then the pressure of the state. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. And you're just pointing out the challenges of navigating this. It's really hard. I want to name one other thing, which is that Good Samaritan is we are distinctly aware of the kind of moral injury to our staff in this moment, that particularly our motel staff, but our street outreach staff always, how heartbreaking and how hard it is for them to show up to work each day when they have no answers for people. And part of our Good Samaritan's desire to help people stay housed is not only to support unhoused folks, but also to really support our staff in this moment so that they can continue to do their work and feel like they are part of a greater good. And so I just want to name that aloud because I do think it's important. It speaks to what Zach said about nonprofits and what they do in our communities. So. I'm just reading Clem's note in the chat. Clem writes, double checking people exiting and unsheltered does not include couch surfing. That is correct. It does not. Just mentioning because I know folks who are couch surfing and are often at risk of losing those temporary solutions. Yes, we understand. Yes, there are many other temporary and contingent housing situations that we know are pretty volatile. And yes, this number does not include couch surfing. Bev.
We also continue to get sort of a steady trickle of people being exited from other situations, people who are newly unhoused, not due to the motel exit, but I mean, that happens all the time. So that continues to happen.
Thanks, Dawn. Bev?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, when you said we need to continue putting pressure on the state, can you be specific on how, like, anybody can do that?
Sure. So I know there was a person at the Fall Festival at the State House Friday that's starting a postcard writing. The pressure that I think we want to apply is to the governor and our state legislators. I think most of the state legislators in Montpelier are exceptionally sympathetic to what we are already doing, but it never is a harm to write them and say this needs to change. But yes, pressure on the governor is probably the best course of action. And I think, Good Samaritan Haven is not in a position to that kind of political organizing, but to the extent the community wants to rally around that, it would be, I'm sure, very welcomed.
One more question. Who, as far as our legislators go, who do you think is the most receptive or our biggest advocate?
Go ahead, Tori.
Bev, yesterday 91 of our state representatives sent a letter to the governor asking the governor to declare a state of emergency around homelessness and to immediately shelter everyone who has been evicted from the motels. They also asked, that's been accompanied in public organizing by the requests that basically anybody who can get to a phone, call the governor, whose number is 828-3333, like right now, and say that is what we are asking people to do. I'm kind of hazy how many legislators there are, but both of the Montpelier area legislators who I know of were among the people who signed those letters. Connor Casey, Kate McCann, also Kate Logan, Jubilee McGill, but probably a zillion others. So I would take a look at that, but that's something that all of us really need to be publicizing, that letter came out. It was all over the VT Digger. I haven't looked at the Times Argus to see if it was in there or not, but that's like maybe a quarter of all of the state representatives that there are. And the thing that we can do is call the governor, but also spread the word that letter went to the governor.
Tori, I put the link in the chat for you that you sent me yesterday. Sorry, I didn't have time to actually read it, so I really appreciate your support.
Okay. Yeah, and I sent it to I think I sent it to everybody on the task force while trying not to violate the open meeting laws. Yeah, when it came out yesterday.
Thanks, Tori. Carolyn.
We haven't talked about including or talking to Circle, who deals with domestic violence and has a shelter. And one of the things that occurred to me is that maybe they should be strengthened to develop more resources because they're better able to deal with victims of domestic violence. And I would suspect there's some disability groups or some aging organizations that might be able to be enlisted in helping in some way alleviate the situation.
Thanks, Carolyn. Appreciate that. And yes, definitely, by all means. So we're still in updates. It's 12:16. I just wondered, did our street outreach team have anything else you wanted to add?
Not,
Concerns, ideas, needs?
I think that one of the things that just snuck up on us is this, I honestly believed that people who were already in a new, fresh 80 days would be okay in the motels. I had no idea 2 weeks ago during this meeting, I found out that they weren't okay because they didn't reach, the state reached capacity. This, this was just a horrible thing to, find out. And we've seen it a couple times. I also believe that a couple people were exited early because of this policy. So, and how do you fight that? That's really hard. And it's really taking a toll out here because people who are used to being in the hotel for 4 or 5 years are having to find out the hard way that they're outside now. And where are they going to put their stuff and all that jazz? So there's just a lot of things, and I could go on. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
Talk to you then.
Mary, would you mind muting yourself?
There are also a number of people who had saved their 80 days or who had not started their 80 days. Some people do try to save it for winter, although not that many. But these people are counting on using their 80 days as the weather got colder, and some of them are finding out that due to the cap on room numbers that's not an option. So there are a number of people who are already out there, in addition, who were not planning on being out this winter and maybe outside.
Thanks, Don. And just a calendaring note around how the motel exits are working, because different people came in at different times and different state kind of requirements and regulations affected people's stays differently. There is the assumption that October 7th and October 11th, we will see quite a lot more people who reach their time. So there are still people that will leave, and I think my understanding is a lot of those people are folks who are on SSDI, so have disability benefits. So just keep a note on that.
And also, I have a calendar note as well. I have at least 1 or 2 folks who are slated for exit around November 13th. I originally had calculated November 20th, but guess not. And this is really important to understand the gap. So you talk about a gap. We talked about this a few months back. And I think when it gets real, you say, oh my God, and that's where the state needs to come in. And the other thing I just want to say real quick, and I'm going to be quiet for a bit, is I want to know what the alternative is, though. Say the state does come through. Are we going to see more of those stand-up shelters with quick staffing and not the qualified people that you'd want in there? I don't know how the last one went, but I didn't like what happened over there. It was out in the country, as you know, or out here just outside town. We had a few buildings stood up. When you stand up a shelter, you do it real quick. And I would rather have qualified individuals in there. Thank you very much.
Thanks. And for those of you who are maybe talking to your neighbors, that's a really great point, which is, I think we all, first of all, congregant shelter is inappropriate for families. Even the state knows that. And we know we have families who need shelter. And we also know that when the state tried to stand up these shelters last time, the one in Montpelier was unused because it was way out of town. It didn't have appropriate bathroom facilities. Nobody knew about it. it had very limited hours, and it was staffed by people that just didn't have the understanding of the folks that they're serving. So I think my recommendation for people in the task force when you're talking to your neighbors is to be sure that you say these congregate shelters that they might stand up are inappropriate. What we actually just need is to keep people in their motel rooms and really make a plan for how to end that motel program with affordable housing and transitional housing and more, all the things. So if I can press that upon you, I think that's a really important talking point, is to discourage those congregate shelters from getting stood up by the state again.
And this is Zach one more time.
Go ahead, Dawn, and then Zach.
Yeah.
Just another reason that the pop-up shelters were not utilized was that there was very little communication about the transportation. And as someone who would have referred a number of people to the shelter, I was unaware that there was transportation going there. So that's just the communication around this stuff needs to be better too. Obviously, if it were a longer term shelter, it would be more available and more people would know about it. But that's one of the potential issues with the sort of last minute short term things. Thanks.
And
Zach, go ahead.
yeah, I just want to say my rallying cry again, because I really think one of the problems I have right now is we had, well, it wasn't us. I'm just thinking 4 years, at least 4 years, maybe 3, and the state had the ability to do something unique. And I just think, why are we starting over now? And that's just my comment. Thank you. I'm getting off the box now.
Tori, and then I'd like to help us close down this section by just thinking, is there anything that we want to communicate to the task force about or to the city council about the conversation we just had? Tori, go ahead.
There we go. And the legislator's letter is also very clear in their ask to the governor that sheltering people should not look like shelters. Basically, that whatever is done needs to be a safe place for people to be. People need to be able to get there. People need to have the information. Basically the things that were done wrong last time need to be done differently.
Carolyn, and then I just want to hear from folks if we want to send any communication based on this conversation to the council. Carolyn, go ahead.
I think the thing that we really would like to know is where can people sleep? Where can they camp? And where can they park their cars? And will the city provide support for that?
There's also an issue on affecting fewer people of where people can park a camper if they're living in a camper. I don't know, there may be only one person outside with that problem at the moment, but that was an issue last year, I think.
Okay, so I'm just formulating an idea here. And with a hand that's not totally functioning, trying to pull something together. I'd like to suggest that we send an update. It can be very brief to the council. I would like to suggest that included in that update is the data that I just shared with you, which also Good Samaritan has shared with the state as well, based on motel exits. To be clear with that data, that excludes people who were already living outside prior to the beginning of the exits on September 19th. It excludes those who are newly living outside for a variety of reasons. And then it excludes people who are couch surfing or in other unstable housing situations. It feels important to note what Carolyn just mentioned, which is that according to street outreach, I'm going to say that, and anecdotal information, our community does not have enough locations for camping, or to park a camper or to park a car, that we anticipate October 7th and 11th will be additional exit dates from the motel, which will again increase our numbers. So
I want to, I'd like to bring something into that if we can.
Please.
I think that thinking back to the council meeting last week, I think we need to frame it not as where can people this or that. I don't think the city council or Bill Fraser have the remotest idea where people, I think what we need to do is, I think what, and I think really what they're asking us to do and relying on us to do is saying based on our experience and what we've heard from people, what is needed is, and then, what is needed is places for people to camp, places for people to park their cars, and whatever else the needs are. I think we need to lay out, this is what we know is needed. So where's that going to come from? Because it's not, these are not people who know the answer to those questions, but they're sitting on their hands and not acting on them. They didn't know, some of them didn't know that these are the things that are needed, and they definitely don't know, they're relying on us to that's what they're relying on us for.
Mm-hmm. So I want to just quickly draw a distinction between, a brief update that we can share with them like today, just to keep them in the know, versus what we want to present to them on the 16th, of which this can be part of, right? So I want to keep today simple. It seems like they appreciate information, and I want to give them just information about the current, that's what I'm proposing, is like just current state. And then on the 16th, Tori, we move more into that conversation about like these are our recommendations. What do you think?
And I'm just saying, don't frame it as, well, what are you going to do about this? But this is what, even in the brief report, this is what we're hearing.
That this is the need. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Got it. Okay.
Did you get Mary's note that she's trying to raise her hand, but can't make the computer raise her hand for her?
Sure. Mary, would you like to make a comment? Mary, you're muted if you're trying to speak.
Is it open now?
Yep, we got you.
Oh, okay, funny. That's showing me as muted on my screen. I just want to second what Zach said about it's been 4 years. It's been a lot longer than that. The state just, when they, nicely put people in motels and gave them that option, but you can't just throw people in motels and then that's it. Okay, you need a plan. So I second that. Also second what Tori has said, that the need to be specific on some of these things of where can people go and make some decisions on that. The decisions will have to get made, or the people will, there'll be more problems. So I second that too, in whatever way you can do that. And even though you might push things out to the 16th, that is October, we don't know what weather, our climate is not something we can count on now. So the sooner the better. So I second those two persons that have spoken to these things. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Zach, and then Sophie.
Yeah, I just wanted to say quickly that I think the city has taken a position a little bit, and they have said, if we and I quote, if we can't tolerate camping because it will, or say we're going to tolerate camping, or whatever they said it somehow because we're afraid hundreds of people will come in.
Right.
I think we have to convey a message that yes, we do need to tolerate something, something in between. I'm not, and I'm not afraid of 100 people coming down here, but I could be wrong. I just think we're making a huge assumption, and either way, it's going to happen anyway. So, wouldn't you rather have a better approach than, we're just going to, because what bothers me, folks, is we have confliction in policy. We have the encampment policy. We have the encampment policy that will guide us while we have a no camping policy here and here. We both know Hubbard Park isn't doable, and neither is CCR, but we look the other way.
Right.
under certain circumstances, which is dictated by the city. And we need a better guide, and the city has just not been willing to commit. Thank you.
I really, Zach, appreciate what you just said, and that was
Yep.
kind of what I was thinking also, that, you know, we're in an impossible situation, and it's just, I don't even know what the right word is. Like, we're seeing these people being kicked out of the motel and they can't camp. Like, it just seems like the city is not allowing for
Right.
ways to fix this. Like, it's very painful to have this discussion. So I think if we can have the council understand that, like, this is one of the reasons people were so upset about what happened at Country Club Road. I mean, you know, and that's not even, like, we shouldn't be trying to get more tents for people, but that sadly is the situation we're in right now. So I think Zach said it much better than I did. So if there's a way to just kind of get that sense in there of, you know, so now what? Like, so now what are we supposed to do?
Yeah. Yep.
Can I just read back to you all what I crafted that I don't know if it's right, so please help me. I just wrote, some middle ground must be found to support campers in Montpelier. We understand the fear of hundreds of campers arriving, but we need some consistent way to support and address camping in our city.
Mary,
I actually find it hard to believe that hundreds of people are going to show up to camp on a piece of property that's, you know, whatever, a couple miles out of town.
Yeah.
Seems unlikely to me.
Yeah. It was specifically Bill Fraser at the council meeting who was talking about, 100 people will come. Nobody else on the council, you know, nobody else in that meeting was endorsing that as a possibility. And if anything, I'd like to see us challenge that, you know, I'd like to see us politely challenge that kind of fear mongering. I think it's fine to ask for evidence, maybe evidence somewhere else in the state, that if you allow camping, 100 people will come. You know, have 100 people gone to Burlington or gone someplace else. But otherwise, I think we should be aware, just in terms of the dynamics of the group, that the dynamics, at least of that particular council meeting, that it was one person who was making that statement, and others probably could easily be supported in looking at facts rather than fear.
Bev, I'm gonna just go ahead, Dawn.
I mean, conceivably, I would think you could put a rough cap on the number of people at a given spot without having to engage in 24-hour supervision and money for staffing and all that. I mean, I think there are probably ways that you can manage it. It's not, you know, there is an issue with, do you provide services or not? There's an issue with if you have everyone congregated in one place, there's going to be more conflict. But so maybe you have more than one place, ideally.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Thank you, Dawn. And I just want to name in this conversation the absence of public safety and of Kelly, who provides a lot of input here. And the reason why I want to say that is because the city, if camping occurs, will want to provide safety. And sometimes that can really mean life-saving safety, which means they need access to be able to get to a person to support them. So I just want to name that, like, that is required of the city. And so sometimes these decisions are made navigating the complexity of that. So I just want to lift that up as, like, sometimes it feels like it's just in our way, but sometimes it's very real, right? We don't want anybody camping in a location where we can't get to them if they're experiencing a medical emergency, let's say, for instance, or putting our public safety people in danger by trying to reach them. So I just want to name that those are, like, real problems that the city and public safety has to grapple with. And I just want to lift that up since they're not here. Bev, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, it was last week. The Burlington designated 12 campsites for families, free of cost. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Whole thing about, like, oh, there are no municipalities in Vermont that allow camping on their land. Okay, so that's actually untrue now. Thank you.
Um,
It was true, now it's not.
Thank you. And I actually think that's really important to say there are municipalities who are modeling a middle ground, which is, it sounds like what we're asking for. Let me see. Okay. So it's 12:36. I'm trying to be really cognizant of time because there are a few other things I want to cover. This is very unpolished, but I can read back to you now what I have in terms of a statement, and you can tell me where I need to make changes or where I missed anything that was brought forward. So we'll name some of the data that was already shared in this meeting with the council. We will name that it excludes certain groups of people so people living outside prior to the 19th, people newly living outside, people who might be couch serving or in unstable housing. According to street outreach and other anecdotes, there are not enough camping locations for campers, locations for car in the city of Montpelier. What is needed is places for people to camp, places for people to park their cars or campers, and some middle ground should be found to support campers in Montpelier. That we understand there's fear around the arrival of, I said hundreds of campers, we can leave it at that or we can change it, but that we need some consistent way to support and address camping, and that perhaps Burlington, who recently designated 12 sites to families, provides a middle ground that we could consider. We should name that October 7th and 11th are additional increase of numbers based on motel exits assumptions. And I just added like that we as a community should continue to pressure the state to reinstate the motel program so that they can build something more sustainable, and that congregant pop-up shelters are not a viable answer.
May I
Yes.
may I make a request here? I think that our proposals or our requests would be easier to support if we had more information on what other municipalities around the state are doing. I know a lot of us don't have time to research that, but that's something that we could do as a task force, is to just find out what's happening in other local communities or statewide, or, you know, within the bordering states. I think if we had more specific information to back up what we're saying, that we would have more credibility.
Thanks, Dawn. Carolyn, and then Tori.
I think that one selling point might be that if we know where people are camping, it'll facilitate the provision of emergency services.
I think one of the issues that came up with the Girton Parklet was that they said it increased the number of emergency calls. And I think there are two things at work here. One was that if you have a place where people can gather centrally, they are more likely to have access to phones. They're more likely to make calls when someone needs treatment rather than to be isolated and unable to reach help. The other two things that happened is, you know, if you put a gathering spot right on the street where a lot of people have to walk by it, you're going to get more calls from the public. And as Tori said, they didn't differentiate between what were service calls, what were complaints, what were valid emergencies or threats. So, you know, separating it, not having it in the way, using some common sense about where we place it would really help. But I don't know whether the increase in calls represented an actual increase in need, or if they just reflected an increase in people who are able to get help. But I know the police have concerns about bringing a lot of people together, you know, on the theory that when you have more people together, there are going to be more legal issues and more emergencies.
Thanks, Dawn. I'm gonna just invite us to try to get to a kind of a place of closure, and whether or not people feel comfortable with this message. And if not, we'll move it along and we'll save it for the 16th. Carolyn, and then Tori.
I didn't put down my hand, but my suggestion was not in having everybody camp in one big lump. It was having scattered camping spaces and and maybe direct them to more accessible spots.
Thanks. I'm going to invite us to not get into too much problem solving today.
Yeah.
I think what we want to do is we want to give the council an update. We don't need to solve this today. We just need to let them know what we think the need is. Tori?
I'm comfortable with the update other than the part about, well, here's how camping could be done. That kind of slipped in there, and I would vote against making that recommendation at this point. We haven't looked at that in the kinds of ways that I think we could confidently stand it back in the recommendation. I think we can and should make a report saying this is the situation, this is what we know about what the current unmet needs are, and there's not a place currently for people to camp. With regard to reaching out to find out what's happening other places, if we decide we want to do that, I think probably we could get hold of Frank Knack or somebody else who has a statewide mailing list and say, would you just put this query on your email list and ask people please to get back to us and let us know what the situation is with camping in your municipality. I'd be happy to do that if we decide at some point that we want to do that.
Okay. I want to hear, I also agree with Tori that our statement should just say what is needed, places for people to camp, places for people to park a car or camper. It doesn't provide a solution. It just provides that this is what we believe is needed. Is there anybody that objects to not being specific, who really thinks we need to give a suggestion here? Go ahead, Nolan.
Thank you. I'm just reiterating what Zach was saying. I just wanted to acknowledge that it's a fine line between saying that it's a good idea to go to camp out, but simply stating it more objectively that it's if and when it does happen, this is how it needs to play out, practically speaking. And we don't have to be necessarily rooting for either side in it. I suspect it's becoming increasingly divisive or at least controversial. Thank you.
Hey, Meredith, can I chime in for a second?
Please.
Yeah, so going back to Tori, in response to what you said, my concern is that a city council doesn't know a lot of the stuff that is happening. You know what I mean? The members, like they probably have, I imagine there's some that don't know that Burlington came up with this camping policy. You know, I mean, it's hard to measure who knows what, but that's why I support putting that in there, because they might be like, really? I mean, I don't know. Anyways, thanks.
Thanks, Bev. And I think I guess my response to that is, again, let's keep this update that we want to send like this week separate from what we want to say on the 16th. And to be clear too, like whatever we share on the 16th can come with some preparatory documentation, including a link to what Burlington is doing. Like here is some of what we're seeing around the state. So that's what I would like to suggest, is that we make this statement, it be an update, it say what is needed, but not try to solve the problems, and then we can offer the solutions piece, hopefully at our during our time to give input. I am going to try and get this into the chat one more time. I'm going to try and get this into the chat so that we can all vote on it as an appropriate update to council, and then we can empower someone to just make it look a little nicer than it does before we send it along. So let me get this into the chat. Hold on one second, it's not quite ready.
Stan, if you can hear this, could you please unmute yourself and say what you just said in that email to the whole group?
Sure thing. Stan Brinkerhoff, I live in Montpelier. There's some assertions that Burlington is allowing camping, and I think the details here, and this is what I emailed Tori, might be important. Burlington maintains a campground. They have the North Beach campground, which is a 137 site campground with staff, with facilities, with showers. It's a city owned campground. Montpelier does not have an equivalent facility, right? We don't have a staffed campground in town. I would caution the assertion that there's a municipality allowing camping, because I think it is a significantly different situation due to the fact there is a staffed campground, right? I expect if you went in front of Norton or others and said, hey, look, there's another group doing this, or Alec at the Parks Department, they would point out that we have no equivalent commercial or municipal in Montpelier. I think the closest would be like Plainfield, Marshfield, right? There's a campground that could be used. I think Burlington's also asking for donations to cover those costs inside that campground, right? So I think what Burlington is doing to provide resources is interesting, and I agree that we should bring to bear municipal services where we can. I would just caution that there is not an equivalency between Burlington, right? You can't say they provided 14 campsites, we should be able to do the same, because they have the staff that's funded by other campers in that campsite. Thank you, Tori.
This is Zach. While I concur with Stan, I do think we can compare. Because we're trying to get somewhere, and there's nothing worse than hearing, well, we can't do it, we don't have it. Yeah. I think there is value in the city. I think we can look at looking around for money. I know that that's hard to do, and I'm fed up. Unfortunately, I'm fed up now. So what's going to happen here is they need to choose what their priorities are, in my view. And I'm sorry, but that's why I send them to City Hall. And I've said this to City Council many times. They're going to do it anyway. So wouldn't you rather have a structured environment or not? And I know you share that, Stan, I get that, but I am going to keep comparing Burlington to Montpelier because they are doing it, and we can do something smaller. Right. It doesn't have to be a huge deal. But if you keep telling me we don't have it, I'm going to start voting people out of office. Thank you.
Okay, folks, thank you, Zach. And I think what I have formulated, and please do not assault me with grammatical changes. I'm gonna ask somebody from this group to please, whether myself or someone else, take responsibility for like putting this into some semblance of a format that is appropriate to send to City Council. But let's not let perfect get in the way of complete. The statement reads, and this is what I'm going to ask somebody for a motion if we want to make a motion to send this to council, that the October 2 data, that the numbers there are people who are exited from the GA program as of September 19th, 25 individuals, 15 in tents, 10 in cars, 5 families with 9 children, 3 tents, 2 cars. This excludes people who were already living outside in the area prior to the 19th, those who are newly living outside for various reasons, or people who are couch surfing or in other unstable housing situations. That on October 7th and 11th, more exits will increase our numbers as more motel exits can occur on those days. That's redundant, but someone will fix that. While we know shelter is the best answer, people are being forced to camp as a last resort. There are not enough locations for camping or to park a camper or to park a car in Montpelier. What is needed? Places for people to camp, places to park a car or a camper in Montpelier. Our community must continue to put pressure on the state to reinstate the motel program. uh, uh, and to keep people in the motel to make a sustainable plan. Congregant shelters, as stood up during the last motel exit by the state, are not an answer. So that is the thrust of it. And if people feel it's too sloppy, we can just pause it and leave it for the 16th. If you feel like it can be cleaned up and sent along to council as an update, as imperfect as it is, then I would take a motion.
This is Zach with the motion, with the understanding that it is an update and it's not a perfect
Right.
product. It's an update. I take a motion. I got a motion for you. There you go.
I second that.
Thank you.
Any conversation, concerns, hesitations?
No hesitation. I just want to give one more. I want to put something out there just as a final comment for me today. The city a few years ago, and I said this last time, they have tried some options. I just want to own whatever you said. That's great, Meredith. I don't have the word in front of me, but I want to put this out there that we have made attempts to open programming. I'm not going to name it here again because I think people are getting sick of hearing it, but we did try a couple different things. And one of the things that occurs to me is, say the city does allow, it does a camping thing. Someone's got to run that, right? And that's
Right.
what we ran into with our last bright idea. The city was really enthusiastic. I'll just not say it. That wood pallets was explored. This is what Bill was saying a while back. He said this was explored. And what we've run into, so you get these ideas, we just need to keep in mind, I appreciate Mary, that we need someone to run it. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. And again, let's stay focused on, we're not solving the problem here. We're just passing forward knowledge and information. Okay. Any other comments on whether or not you object to voting on passing this forward to the council? Shall we go ahead and vote and see if, so the motion would be that a grammatically correct and cleaned up version of this statement will be provided to our city council as an update on the current state of affairs in Montpelier and in support of and preparation for our meeting on the 16th. Can I see a show of hands to send this cleaned up version to the council this week?
Zach's voting aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Dawn, did you want to vote?
I'm voting aye, and then
Aye.
I'm leaving. Thank you.
Okay. Nolan?
Nolan, you're muted.
Can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. What I'm doing is I am abstaining for now. Thank you for your persistence.
Thank you, Nolan. So we have 6 aye votes, 1 nay vote, or sorry, 1 abstention and no nay votes. Wow, it's 12:55. And there was a lot more I really wanted to cover. I would like to share a few things and hope to get some wheels turning and maybe some folks working offline, either independently or in small teams. My computer was acting really crazy, and so I had to get out of my main document. Let me get back to where I was. We didn't get a chance to talk about community outreach to our any of our colleagues at the city, particularly the planning department. And in addition, I named Front Porch Forum, not with the assumption that we would engage in Front Porch Forum, but just a general noticing that some community outreach around this would be really useful. I would love to hear if there's anybody who feels excited about being part of a community response and really community education, things like what to do if you see an encampment, what to do if you encounter a person who appears to need help or is unsheltered, kind of thing. I see Bev.
So, yeah, okay.
Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, I appreciate it. In just 1 minute, if I can do it, because I wanted to put this out there. real quick, and definitely willing to go offline with people with it if we need to. But I did say I wouldn't bring it up real quick. So the nuance of the planning commission's issue is that the issues along a bike path between Confluence Park and the high school, particularly concerns around folks talking to, calling out the kids between the ages of 11 and 14. And this is a really, they seem to not be informed about how to handle this stuff. They talked about wanting to talk to city council, to which we have started to reach out to the planning commission, me and Meredith, a little bit to see if they would see us, have some of us go over there, or have them come here, and I'm already coming up with these ideas. I don't know if y'all can still hear me, but
Yes.
I these ideas how to deal with this, so we can come prepared.
Thanks, Zach. Zach, it's not Tori, were you interested in the outreach piece?
Yeah, I'm interested in both. I am very interested in hearing more of Zach's thoughts about the what happened at the planning commission meeting. And depending on that, probably being involved in some outreach about it. And I'm also very interested in being involved in helping organize what do we want to do with the meeting with the city council on the 16th. I think we need to have a plan for both of these things leaving this meeting today. And I don't know if we
Yes.
can make this meeting longer or if we can just plan incredibly fast or what, but
I think what we need to do is to build some small teams and to have some trust in one another that we're
Yeah.
going to share information as we go. What I'm
Mhm.
seeing is Bev and Tori and Zach are interested in
Sophie seems to be also.
in community outreach.
Mm.
Sophie, Zach, I'm just gonna name like you bring to this
Nice.
your
Yeah.
knowledge,
Yep.
your knowledge as a street outreach worker, and so I would invite you to like engage there in such a way that you feel supported in the work that you're already doing, but that you're
Yeah.
really giving input and like on the ground understanding to
Yeah.
the team.
Well, this is Zach again. I just wanted to name something that I wasn't able to name at the city council
Right.
meeting. And I told them that we would be engaging or looking forward to engaging with the planning commission. We do not have the resources to do what I'd like to do. Me and Don and OSA have talked about ways to do this, and some of it's volunteer, but most of us don't have the time. I don't have the resources to devote out there. So a long conversation for our team over here. Just kidding.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
What
you,
is
Zach.
it? What is it?
Plan, okay? No pun intended.
Yeah. What is it that you want
What's
to
that?
do ideally though? Because at the city council meeting, it was clear that there was
I
stuff
want
that
to
we're not
escort. I
saying.
want to provide I want to provide an escort to the students
Okay.
from the high school
Yep.
out. I believe, and I don't like the planning commission's idea of putting people in yellow shirts. I'm a little. We need to have experienced people out there doing this, because I think what would happen is some poor exchanges.
Mhm.
Although planning commission did point out that if they had escorts, they tended not to be bothered. So, they wanted to put people out there in yellow shirts to deflect this. At least that was an idea. But I did provide escort last year. We did it once, but it takes time.
Mhm.
I work from like 2 to, like 3 o'clock each day or something like that. And we would have to really build that. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm gonna try and help us close our meeting by inviting us into small groups to do this work with while still conforming to public meeting laws. So we have right now some folks on community outreach, Bev, Tori, Zach, Sophie, folks who can support preparation for the October 16th meeting at City Council.
I would rather do that than, but I'll go wherever I'm needed.
Okay, so if I'm gonna put you with Tori and I on city council,
Mhm.
and we'll start to begin that. And I'm gonna double check and make sure that we're doing this appropriately within the confines of public meeting, but I also am just gonna encourage us to be, very transparent about
Yeah.
note taking and sharing out the work
Yeah.
that we're doing among the committee, and tracking it well for the city. So and then I will also say that I think the confluence, let's say, of the community outreach piece
Mhm.
and the planning piece and potentially how to support use of the bike path, this all intersects, right? So let's find a way to really prioritize that in our next meeting, to think about how we can start really meaningfully doing that work together. All right, any announcements?
Yeah, I'd like to get out of here. Announcement.
Then make a motion.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you.
I'm going to second that. All right, everyone, have a wonderful day. We'll see you
Bye.
soon. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.